Welcome to our podcast, Planet Pulse, Season 2, Episode 1, where we will dive into our planet's most pressing issues. This episode is brought to you in collaboration with Extreme Hangout, and today we are joined by two very special guests, Nafisa Baloch from Pakistan and Atif Javed from India. Our episode focuses on exploring the race against critical climate tipping points and the need for bold justice driven actions to secure a sustainable future. But before we begin, I'd like to ask my speakers to introduce themselves. Atif?
Hi, I'm Atif from Bangalore, India. I work as a sustainable consultant, mostly focusing on zero waste and zero hunger programs and sustainable education, and focused on climate action and climate capacity building around India and Southeast Asia.
I'm Nafisa Baloch. I'm based in Gwadar, Balochistan, and this is my fourth international conference. I'm representing my own organization, Madad Balochistan, here. We give climate education and rehabilitate communities that have been affected by climate change in Balochistan and Sindh.
All right, so we will start our podcast. Nafisa, the climate clock is clicking down, right? And what does this countdown truly signify, and why should it be a wake up call for every one of us?
So basically, the climate clock is a warning. We have only 8 to 12 years that we should act on climate change. Otherwise, if we don't, then the floods, droughts, heat waves will be worsened and it will affect more people around the globe. So we should work together to protect our vulnerable communities.
Right. Atif, how close are we to hitting those irreversible thresholds where the world is not going to go back to how it was? What do you believe? How close are we to that?
If you just deep dive into the COP itself, the Conference of Parties, it all started with the whole agenda that we would be keeping the target of 1.5 degrees Celsius and not meeting a point there that it's irreversible. So it's COP29, and we are all focusing on climate finance this year, and then COP30 in Brazil is going to happen. But then with all the things we are looking at so far, specifically the melting of Arctic and the damages done by the industrializations and the loss and damage not being paid by the global north to the global south, all these small changes have a bigger effect. And if we do not act now, I don't think we have enough time, especially focusing on the sustainable goals of meeting 2030. Although like typhoons and cyclones and everything and floods are coming in the global north as well, but then they have the capacity to build on top of it. But then not all the developing nations have that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, firsthand, we all are experiencing it in our countries, whether it's India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. We have seen it, even Nepal, the earthquakes and the sudden rise of temperature. So it is like now or never.
Nafisa, what do you think? How are these vulnerable communities feeling the pressure, and how can we sort of protect these communities? And on the other hand, how is climate change amplifying the existing inequalities that we're facing? For example, gender inequalities, or let's say community inequalities, ethnic inequalities we're talking about. So how does climate change further amplify it?
I think that climate justice should prioritize our communities, those who are left far behind. We should not lift anyone in the part of climate change. We should take all of like communities, all of vulnerable communities, indigenous women especially with us to fight for climate change.
Atif, I would like you to add on to this point as well, but can you focus on the indigenous aspect of our strategies? कि मतलब अगर हम climate justice को implement कर रहे हैं, उसको include कर रहे हैं अपनी strategies में, उसमें हम indigenous elements किस तरह से add कर सकते हैं? How can we utilize the knowledge that they have to achieve climate justice?
Definitely. I mean, India being a large country in itself, we have multiple regions and indigenous people of its own. So just talking about like maybe one of the regions that is the Northeast India, the Seven Sisters. So nobody knows Northeast India better than the people who are living there, who have been from there itself.
Absolutely.
So knowledge sharing is one of the most important part.
Okay.
And like having a procedure set up. Do not wait for the disaster to happen, but rather take the action and have a procedure and preferences set up way before. So including them in the conversation is one thing, and just for the sake, not like just for the maybe media attention or maybe just for having like a discussion, but rather like a keep a plan and a procedure ready. So talking about any disaster, if you take the earthquakes in the Turkey or the floods in the northeast, people were like really suffering. So until the army arrives, until the disaster teams arrive, and then planning out at the last moment, it doesn't work out. Although it's unpredictable, but then we are the one who are involving in the damages.
Yep. So you basically are implying that we should go towards more proactive measures instead of reactive measures, which we're normally doing in our region.
Definitely.
All right. So Nafisa, what top 3 actions would you suggest to world leaders that they should take right now to buy us more time? Because again, the time is running out. We have nothing at hand over here, and we're facing the brunt. We're facing all of the catastrophes. What can we do?
Obviously, the leaders should reduce the emissions, protect vulnerable communities, or I think their first priority should be giving climate education. Because if I see Balochistan, तो हमारे लोगों को ये भी नहीं पता है कि climate change होता क्या है real में. So they don't even know what is climate change. So if someone don't even know what is climate change, how they will try to solve it.
Right.
So first we have to educate them, empower them, so they can take actions for themselves.
Speaking of mitigation, Atif, कहने में it's very easy, and keeping in mind again the context again is we're running out of time. How can we mitigate so quickly that we try and buy us more time?
Yes, I mean, we all are aware of the local conference of youth.
Yes.
Similarly, regional conference of youth and then conference of youth.
Yep.
So this is a system based for the youths to be involved and participate and get a knowledge sharing happen. But then it's not been able to that it's not been all the people are not being involved in it. It's particularly for the youth groups, that's good and well. But then a lot of majority of the population in many countries which are not young. So how do we include them as well, and how do we make it fast? That's your question, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So
I'll rephrase my question once again. We're talking about mitigation, right? So the problem is that saying that we need to mitigate is very easy, but keeping in mind कि हमारे पास time नहीं है. How can we mitigate so quickly? What actions can we take? हमारे पास at least we have that sort of, you can say that a little bit of space to kind of slow down in that.
Obviously, the foundational level of the governments has to be involved from this smaller level of representation, whether it's district, the states, or the country. Everybody will have to pull their weight together. That's one of the major thing we have to do. And obviously the education part that Nafisa mentioned and you're discussing. So if they don't know or they don't understand all the technicalities, we cannot take any action until then. So first is educating, capacity, and then obviously the action. The action part can be fast process only if we are equally treating all of our citizens and people and making a process to solve the problem from the grassroots level to up to the top level and stepping away from the bureaucracy and red tapes.
Okay, I'm going to add to this question furthermore. We do actions on grassroots levels. For example, let's say youth inclusion, youth mobilization, all of that is happening. But when we come all the way to the top, we have geopolitical issues, we have, you'd say, political matters that come into the decision-making processes. Speaking of that, let's look at COP28, right? We weren't able to implement the policy of phasing out of fossil fuels. Instead, we went for transitioning away from fossil fuels. That's a major thing. That's a major difference between these two things. What we need is phasing out. We don't need transitioning. What can be done to actually make these world leaders implement policies so radical, like that they agree to phasing out instead of transitioning from unsustainable measures and actions?
But as a personal level, we can definitely say that phasing out is the option, or like we have to implement it as a radical move to meet the demands and the 1.5 degrees Celsius and everything else. But then if I talk on the behalf of like maybe country stance or like I do not represent country here, but then as in what I understand from a larger population or a bigger country, like phasing down is the first step towards phasing out.
Okay.
So at least we have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So there should be a middle ground where all the parties meet.
Okay.
So we have to start down where we can cut losses and as how fast we can do it. That is the first step, I believe.
So do you think the world leaders are doing that?
Not 100%, but then some of them are.
Okay.
Some of the countries are meeting it, and European countries, the European Union have set a timeline, and UAE being one of the countries telling in the MENA region, like
Mm.
2050, we will be meeting the demands and everything. Marshall Islands signed the non-proliferation treaty and then became part of that group of nations who have already like committed to phasing out.
Yep.
But then if we take an example of a country like Maldives,
Mm.
whose the whole energy systems, it runs from the fossil fuel.
Yep.
So if the countries like whether it's Maldives, whether it's India, whether it's anywhere, if we are talking about phasing out, how do we give them a solution where they can rely on a renewable energy or a better option to make them not have the people get affected from it. So we need to have a solution from the youth perspective, nation's perspective, and also like I know time is the matter here, and we need to make it faster. But then we need to have a right solution, which can actually bring change, and not only like in conversations.
Nafisa, how can everyday actions that people, communities, and you say, let's say, vulnerable communities, people in Balochistan, or again, we have Atif Affairs, so let's focus on Bangalore as well. People in Bangalore, what can they do? We were talking about the general public, right? What can they do to kind of disrupt this countdown? The way the time is running out, we can kind of stop it. What can be done by the people?
Okay, so if I talk about Balochistan, so our people don't even know what is climate change. So obviously they cannot act. First, we have to educate them, and after educating, I think they should like switch to renewable energies or um, eat or live sustainable. Yeah.
All right. Atif,
Yes, Fiza.
who has the greatest power to slow the ticking clock?
If we see, if we say technically, then it's already obviously the people, the us, the youths, because 50% of the world population is a youth.
Absolutely.
If we empower them enough with the right knowledge and right way and in the right direction, a lot of things can change. And if you specifically talk about like how it can happen, we have seen in the past way well the colonizations and everything else. I mean, it has taken ages and decades and time, but then it has happened. The independence of our countries or independence from the colonial, pressure and everything else. From obviously the youth population first technically can make and pave the path, but
You can
obviously
make a massive change.
Yeah,
You
massive
have been
change.
making a massive change.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And moreover, like we have to bring in right mind people together, involve stakeholders and signatories in the process, and slowly, but like at the same time, keeping the time of the essence, we have to make the government as well pressure to do the changes in the right direction.
All right, Nafisa, are we racing against an unstoppable force, or do you see pathways through which we can turn back the hands of time?
Yes, I think there are solutions of it. If we switch, if we use climate resilient infrastructure, because I belong from Gwadar, so if I talk about like infrastructure there, तो अभी जो है मैं आपको एक एग्जांपल देती हूँ कि अभी हमारे पास 2024 फरवरी को फ्लड्स हुए हैं और इट वाज लाइक 180 मिलीलीटर्स. तो 180 milliliters is so little. Like बलूचिस्तान गवादर इज़ अ पेनिनसुला शेप्ड सिटी. सो हमारे जो है दोनों साइड में सी है, तो अगर बारिश होती है तो सारा पानी दरिया में समंदर में चली जाती है. सो इतना डैमेज नहीं होता. तो सेम फ्लड्स 2010 में भी आए थे, लेकिन वो लाइक they were much stronger than this. Like it was like 300 plus milliliters, but उन्होंने इतना like those floods have not caused this much damage that was caused in 2024. It was just because of the built infrastructure. Like they have made two roads. The first one is called like the Marine Drive, then the Express Road. So वो road जो हैं वो शहर के लेवल से ऊंचे हैं बहुत ज़्यादा, और जो शहर है वो डाउन है. अब जो शहर में बारिश होती है तो पानी के लिए निकलने की रास्ता नहीं होता. सो बिकॉज ऑफ डेट वी आर लाइक फेसिंग सेवरल डैमेजेस. और अगर मैं अपनी घर की बात करूँ तो आई वाज नॉट इवन एक्सपेक्टिंग टू लॉस इट. लाइक इट वाज लाइक इन गुड कंडीशन. बट अगर हम इस तरह लाइक अच्छे अच्छे घरों को लॉस कर सकते हैं, सो व्हाट अबाउट दोज हु आर लिविंग इन ओल्ड हाउसेस?
Imagine you had just 60 seconds to address the world. what urgent plea or message would you give, knowing that the time is our most precious resource?
Like
Mhm.
if you're losing yourself,
Mm.
if you're about to die,
Mhm.
what would you do? You want to call your family members, you want to do whatever you have not able to achieve it, but think about the whole world.
Yep.
And if it is a mass level of people losing their lives, their houses, their way of living and everything, so there is no time to think about it.
Yeah.
Rather act upon it now.
Nafisa, you have 60 seconds. What are you going to say to the world?
I'm an indigenous Baloch girl, and climate change took my home. Rising temperature, devastating floods ravaged my community and leaving me displaced. So, to the world leaders, I say like they should prioritize people over profit. Um, few million lives are much better than few $1,000,000, and they should protect vulnerable communities like Balochistan. And to everyone, like the youth, to the people, please hear our struggles, please hear our climate stories, and yep, climate justice is a human justice.
Thank you, Nafisa. Thank you, Atif. It was amazing having you both over here. So, guys, this is it for our episode today. And we will see you guys in our next episode with another amazing topic with two more amazing speakers. But for today, thank you, Nafisa. Thank you, Atif, for joining us here. And we will see you around at COP. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into our podcast, Planet Pulse Season 2. We hope you enjoyed the discussion and took away some valuable insights. This series is brought to you by Climate Forward Pakistan in collaboration with Extreme Hangout at COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting discussions and stories like these. Till then, stay curious and stay climate conscious.